people that talk to me on Facebook. I get people that completely ignore the fact that I've asked people to not do one-on-ones but to talk to me publicly so that other people can derive a benefit, and they still kind of talk to me privately, and to a degree I kind of like sometimes do it because I think to myself, well, one of these days I'm going to go back and harvest all of this for articles that I can share with everybody else. It's a question of them finding the time to do it. But really, I'm not getting the time because these people are insisting on one-to-oneing me. There's one or two people I actually welcome it from, but there's others that I just kind of barely tolerate it from. If that's upsetting anybody, then I'm sorry. And it's not you, Victor, if you're thinking anything like that. It's certainly not you. You'll be the first one to think, oh, does he mean me? Because you're a modest guy, but actually you're one of the people that I actually get as much from as I give to. So don't you go thinking that I'm talking about you. But so there's some people there that I really wish they'd ask me that they're sometimes excellent questions in a public forum. And then there's even more where I wish they'd read what I've already written first and then ask me, because it would already be answered. And I can't always even remember where I've answered it, but they could probably go through and find it quicker than I can. It's all on hooliganov.tv. But basically, one of the things I said to one of these guys recently, and I suppose there's a benefit sometimes to talking to this guy, because he does sometimes help me develop thinking. Guy from North Africa. He said to me, well, what do you think a hyperpolyglot is? And what's a polyglot? And I said, well, because, and he told me what the definitions were on Wikipedia. It was kind of him. I said, well, I don't agree with, if you can speak more than 6 languages fluently, how do you determine what is 6 languages? That's the first thing. I mean, if you go to the Balkans, you'll find 6 very similar languages to each other, all purporting to be different languages. So if I know them all, if all that Richard Simcott could do, which it isn't, by the way, Richard Simcott's an impressive guy, don't get me wrong, but if all that he could do was do his Macedonian with Bulgarian and Serbian and Serbo-Croat and what have you, and maybe a bit of Czech and Slovak thrown in, and didn't know a lot of other ones as well, you think, hang on a second, he's taking the easy ride. And you'd be right, because there's a lot of common vocabulary there. You don't have to, there's a lot of regular sound shifts that are always the same. So you don't have to learn, you've got like at least a 30 and sometimes a 40 or 50%, sometimes a 60% head start when you're within the same language sphere. So I don't agree with terming it 6 languages, and yet say to people, well, you must then know completely different languages. You've got to have Japanese or Chinese or some Asian language, something really different, structurally different in the mix, in order to be counted a polyglot. Well, I don't agree with that either, because it's not everybody's cup of tea to do Asian languages. Maybe they're never going to go there. I've got one friend who actually does do Japanese, but he's never going to go there because he's afraid of getting on a plane. It's very tragic, but he nevertheless learns it. But other people, it might not be their cup of tea to learn Japanese or Chinese or Thai or Korean or Vietnamese or any of those other very fascinating languages that I wish I had time to learn. But basically, I'm not even calling it Malaysian or Bahasa in Indonesia. I don't call that an Asian language because it's really a Polynesian language, but it's still in the mix of those down there. Geographically, it's like the Hungarian of that region. It doesn't belong as a really Asian language because it's Polynesian family, but it's geographically amongst other languages around it are ones that you might call Asian languages. Filipino is another, like Malaysian, of course. But I refer to Tagalog. Don't know enough about the other ones, but that's a remote place. If you were going to learn that, it's probably because you're going to go there. If you're not going to go there, then it's difficult to see a justification for learning it. It's a very remote place to go for a holiday if you're a European. Oh, Bank of China. Isn't that great? There's the Moskovskaya Oblastnaya Duma. That's the building where if you've ever seen my photo of me shaking hands with Gorbachev, that's where I did it, in there. That's where I met him. So I regard it with affection, that place. Yes. Moskovskaya Oblastnaya Duma. So, there we are. Anyhow, once again I've lost my train of thought. What do I want to say? Yeah, polyglots, polyglottism and hyperpolyglotism. So I said to this guy, well, I think, you know, and also the thing is fluency. For one person, you can, you know, all he's doing is selling flowers, and he has, let's say, 10 to 20 types of flower, and he knows the numbers for the amounts of flowers that he wants to sell, and the activities that he might do, like putting paper or greenery on it, or putting a little thingy on, you know, a sticker or a gift tag on, and he sells these to people, and he has a clientele which is made up of people all around the world coming to his flower shop, and he likes to use languages, and it all looks really impressive because he's completely fluently covered the vocabulary he needs to do that one limited job. And then you have the missionary who has to be able to explain complex theological concepts in a language of a people that he's going to, and therefore needs to fluency for him means to be able to stand up and preach a sermon from the Old or New Testament, or bring together lots of interesting concepts which he might even have difficulty doing in his own language. But that's what he needs to do, and so therefore he's going to appear unfluent, even if he's done an awful lot more work than the flower seller did. So what's fluency? I like to express myself in long sentences. I do it in English, as you can tell, and I do the same in the other languages that I speak. So therefore, for me to be fluent means to get to be comfortably able to talk to people in that language the way that I'm doing now to you. It doesn't mean that I don't make mistakes. Yes, I do make mistakes, and also I have an accent. Okay? But it's still fluency if you can have this kind of conversation, so that the ideas that I've given you now can be given to somebody, even if it takes longer, or you've got to put up with pauses while the guy searches for words. If you can do it, then that's fluent. That's fluent speaking. Yeah? If you can understand somebody else doing it to you at the speed in which they're, the minimum speed at which they're willing to do it, that's fluent listening. If you can read somebody having written to you about it, this kind of concept, well, that's pretty fluent. That's pretty fluent reading, isn't it? And if you can write about it, that's fluent writing. Usually in writing, the bar's set a bit higher because you're expected to not make so many mistakes if you write something, and you probably won't because you've got time to think about it. So that's where I put fluency, but it doesn't mean perfection. I don't believe in perfection, because you can do one language to perfection in the time it takes you to do 5 to fluency, to functional fluency. That's Pareto's rule, isn't it? The 80-20 rule in practice. If anybody doesn't understand the maths, then talk about it in the comments and I'll explain it all. Now, thankfully, comments are a lot bigger than they used to be, and I can explain things more fully in comments, which I'm happy to do. Much more happy to do it in comments than I am one-on-one. Unfortunately, the thing about this Google thing is that it pushes a lot back to a kind of one-on-one situation, this Google comments thing, and you end up finding yourself one-on-oneing with people that you didn't intend to. It's not that the people are bad, it's just that you could use the same time to share knowledge with a whole load of people, and that's what I want to do. If somebody wants to go one-on-one with me, well, it's going to start getting spiritual before you know where you are, so just be ready for it. Because that's justified, okay? If somebody wants to have a kind of Christian talk about their soul, it's justified to expect one-on-one. But not about languages, not unless you're paying. Then, you know, you'll find that I'm probably one of the more expensive language coaches on one-on-one. I've given so much free that I feel perfectly justified in expecting good money if I'm actually teaching for money. So take the stuff which is free and help me produce more free stuff, and I'll be happy. So if that's polyglot, if polyglot can't be defined by 6 languages to fluency, in my opinion that's too much of a subjective approach, then how would I do it? Well, I'd say, well, 50,000 words, okay, spread out over whether it's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Obviously 2 is not really a polyglot because, well, if you had 50,000 words over 2 foreign languages, that'd already be a more impressive achievement than a lot of the people that call themselves polyglots that have got 2,000 words over 10 languages. And they call themselves polyglots, but you've done more work if you've done 50,000 words and done it over 2 languages. That's actually more work, isn't it? That's on the basis that, you know, learning a word is the same amount of work in different languages. It may not be true, but it's a truism. It's a kind of thing that you could take as a standard. So, given that, I say that for the words that you've learned, actually consciously, in different foreign languages to your own language, after the age of 7, because by the age of 7 you've got the basis of your own language, so don't take your mother tongue or any of the other tongues that you're really pretty fluent in by the age of 7. Take the languages that you've learned since the age of 7, test them, and there's other places where I show you how to do a test like this, to see what your vocabulary size is. And see if you've got 50,000 words. If you have, I think you can call yourself a polyglot, whether you know 3 languages, whether you know 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But if you've got 20 languages and you still can't muster up in all of them 50,000 words put together, well, sorry, but your achievement is less worthy than somebody that can say that he's got 50 or can measure and demonstrate 50,000 words in a fewer number of languages, because they've obviously done more work. Okay, sorry if that offends anybody, but it seems logical to me. Okay, so all of that having been said, we're now next to Krystowski Uniwermag, where I used to come 10 years ago to with my wife when she could still walk a bit better than she does now. That's granati, which is grenades, but they're not that kind of grenades, they're pomegranates. So that's Rysky Vokzal, which has got the metro in it. Up here there are trams that go just past my flat, which I'd prefer to take from this point than try and take the metro and then get the same tram again a couple of stops higher, more full of people. So I think I might be tempted to take it at this point. See how much I've actually done now. 6.7. Because the thing is a bit cold, but I can sort that out by going into there. But then I can't talk to you guys anymore. Let me therefore get to the end of the thought that I have in mind to talk about. If 50,000 is where I'd set the line for a polyglot, again, look just for the languages that you've learned since the age of 7, because that's when you start learning consciously, according to the old Jesuit doctrine. Give me a child at the age of 7, I'll give you the man. And even Chomsky puts it at 6, but I think 7's better, more is erring on the side of caution. And most people can remember 7 better than they can remember 6 as well, what they were doing at the age of 7, so it's more practical and functional to use that term. So, let's consider, yes, it's a pity to be right next to this and not going there, because there's a few things I can only buy here. I have to remember what they are in a minute. Anyhow, basically, if 50,000 is the polyglot threshold. What's the Hyperpolyglot threshold? 100,000? I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to say 150,000. I don't really consider somebody to be a really rare and genius learner unless they can demonstrate to me that over the languages that they have, similar or dissimilar, they can show that they've got 150,000 words. If they can show that to me, I'm impressed. I call that person a hyperpolyglot, not for 100,000, but 150,000. If anybody wants to take the challenge, come meet me, we'll measure them, we'll do it, okay? And I'll find out, and I can also measure in a certain way where different people coming could be measured with the same thing and the same way, so that it's likely to be fair and objective, because that's what I'm about. I'm an accountant, really, when it comes down to it. I'm an auditor at heart. So that's why these things bother me when they're not objective. I'm not a scientist, but I'm a social scientist, if you like. Audit is a kind of social science. Economics is a social science, and audit is a branch of it, a very practical branch of it. So, so if you like, that's what we can do. If you're a candidate for that and you want me to test you, then get in contact and I'll do it. We'll do it. Okay, let's do it. And there we are. Kristowski Univer Mug, an old stomping ground of mine. I'm going to stomp around there again in a moment. There's the Holiday Inn, which is new. Yeah, thank you for that company. I'll see you again.